Father, it is again, O Lord, that we come to the throne of grace to find help in time of need. Lord, we thank you for this moment that you have allowed us to gather here in thy house and in thy presence, to lift our voices and to call it upon thy holy name. Lord, we come to give thanks, praise, and worship unto you. We pray this morning that our offering will be acceptable in your sight. Lord, thank you for this beautiful day in which you have made. We will rejoice and be glad in it. Every day, Lord, is precious, that when we can lay down, we can sleep and wake up the next morning to see a day in which you have made. We will rejoice and be glad in it. Lord, we thank you now for our life, our health, our strength, because it is in you, Lord, that we live, move, and have our beings. Now this morning, Lord, we lift up to you those members of Mount Pleasant, New Hope, other churches, other individuals, in person, who have sickness in the body or bereavement with the family, who are experiencing difficulties, going through trials and tribulations, or whatever the case might be, Lord. We know that you are aware, but you told us in your word that to ask, and it shall be given. So we're asking this morning, Lord, that you would do for each of us what no other power can do. That is to heal our bodies, heal our wounded spirits, bind that which is broken, bring together that which has been scattered. And Lord, we know that you are able, and we believe that you will. We put our trust in you, Lord, that you will do for us what needs to be done. We pray that your will be done. Lord, we thank you for this Sunday morning. Also, we thank you for the day of yesterday that this country come together to celebrate our independence. And for those, Lord, who gave the ultimate, that we might live in this land which we call the land of the free and the home of the brave. Thank you for their sacrifice, Lord, whether they are soldiers of the past or the present. We salute them today, Lord. We honor them because of their patriotism, because of their love for this land. And Lord, we pray that you will bring this land together. As in our creed, that this is one nation under God with liberty and justice for all. We know we're not there yet, because liberty and justice have been meted out all the same. Lord, bring us into the unity by which our creed states. Thank you, Lord, for the privilege of sharing the word. Bless this word this morning. That it might touch somebody's heart and make a change in their life. Pray that blessing upon this church and ministry. And we pray, Lord, that it won't be long before we can gather together again in thy house and in your presence here. And in Jesus' name we pray.
I love you, I love you, I love you, Lord, today, because you care for me in such a special way. That's why I praise you and I lift you up. And I magnify your name. That's why my heart is filled with praise. Oh, that's why my heart is filled with praise. praise you, and I lift you up, and I magnify your name. That's why my heart is filled with praise. That's why my heart is filled with praise. My heart, my mind, my soul belongs to you. You paid the price for me way back on Calvary. That's why I praise you, and I lift you up, and I magnify your name. That's why my heart is filled with praise. Oh, that's why my heart is filled with praise. I love you, I love you, I love you, Lord, today, because you care for me in such a special way. That's why I praise you, and I lift you up, and I magnify your name. That's why my heart is filled with praise. Oh, that's why my heart is filled with praise. Oh, that's why my heart is filled with praise.
That's why my heart is filled with praise. We don't have to look very far to find something to praise the Lord for. All we have to do is just take a look at ourselves. According to the scripture, that we are fearfully and wonderfully made. It shows us that we are unique in the sight of God. There's no one else like us. We don't have the same fingerprints or whatever. So our hearts are filled with praise because He made us individuals. He made us for Himself. And our hearts are filled with praise. We say good morning to everyone. This morning to Pleasant, to New Hope, and to all that are gathered in your homes, car, wherever you might be, to share in this worship service. We thank God for you. But before we go into the message, there's an announcement I want to make on the third Sunday. Members of Mount Pleasant and those who want to come and join us. On third Sunday, we will be observing Holy Communion. And we will have the sacraments, the bread and the wine. We will have it here at the church on the third Saturday at, we said 12:30. And from 12:30 to 1:30, 1 hour only, maybe less, that you can drive by and pick up the sacrament for you and another family member or any other member that's not able to come and pick it up for themselves. But we'll be here for 1 hour from 12:30 until 1:30. And you come by and pick it up, and then we'll be ready Sunday morning to observe Holy Communion. Again, we thank God for all the soldiers, that is our congregation, the community, this country, who have given their service to the freedom, to the protection of this country. We salute you this morning, whether man or woman, whatever branch of service you was in. We honor you today and thank you for this for your patriotic commitment, and because of you, we can celebrate here in the land of the free. So God bless you all. I'd like to call your attention this morning, very briefly, to two passages of Scripture. One is from Ecclesiastes chapter 1 and verse 9 and 10. And the other scriptures from 1 Corinthians chapter 10, and we're going to be reading from verse 6. Let me get the verse right. Yeah, verse 6 through verse 11. Okay. Verse 6 through verse 11. 1 Corinthians chapter 10. But Ecclesiastes chapter 1, 9 and 10 read, "The thing that has been, it is that which shall be, and that which is done is that which shall be done. And there is no new thing under the sun. Is there anything wherefore it may be said, see, this is new? It has been already of old times, which was before us." Amen. Going over to 1 Corinthians chapter 10 and verse 6. It reads, "Now these things were our examples, to the intent we should not lust after evil things as they also lusted. Neither be ye idolaters, as some of them, as it is written, the people sat down to eat and drink, and rose up to play. Neither let us commit fornication, as some of them committed, and fell in one day 23,000. Neither let us tempt Christ, as some of them also tempted, and were destroyed of serpents. Neither murmur you, as some of them also murmured, and were destroyed of the destroyer." And verse 11 reads, "Now all these things happen unto them for examples, and they are written for our admonition, upon whom the ends of the world are come." Amen. The word of God for the people of God. From these two passages of scriptures, especially this 11th verse that says, "Now all these things happen unto them for examples, and they are written for our admonition, upon whom the end of the world are come." And briefly, I want to talk this morning from the subject, learn from the past. Learn from the past. These two books that were written by two different writers at two different times in history, and under two different set of circumstances. But what connects these books for this message is that in Ecclesiastes, Solomon, the preacher, informs us that we shouldn't be surprised as to what is happening now. It's not something new. It may be something that we didn't know. But because we had not the knowledge of it, it doesn't mean that it's new. What he was saying here, that the things that are happening now, that happened before. In this, he talks about life. He talks about the labors of life, how things have been set in motion by God. And they're only following the dictates of God. He talks about how talk about how the sun, so it rises and it sets. Talk about how the river all run into the sea, but in reality it returns to its place. He talks about how the wind goes toward the south and turns toward the north. The world is continual, but yet it returns to its circle. In other words, it's just repeating itself over and over and over again. And since there is nothing new, I believe that we can find something in the past, that we can gain insight or we can learn from. I know every year we talk about, history, black history, and it's good. And we should study history because history let us know where we came from, what the things that have transpired in our pilgrimage here on earth. And we can learn from our history, from our forefathers, and by reflecting back on what has already happened, comparing to what's happening now, it is possible that we could learn a great lesson just by learning from the past. Because if in the past, if what happened to the people of God many years ago, and how they met hardship and difficulty, it ought to say something to us today. Why do we think that we can do the same thing that they did and come out with different results? I often think about that, human nature, church, never change. No, it's in every generation, human nature is the same. You know what I mean? Look at it now. Technology changes, but human nature remains the same. Why? Because look at this. People now we're just like Adam and Eve. We want to be like God. We want to find someone to blame our fault on. They did it then. Human nature still does that. They want us to face responsibility for ourselves, but we want to find someone else to blame for our shortcomings. When the Lord asked Adam what had he done, and Adam tried to shift the blame off of himself, saying it was a woman you gave me. Lord, you're the reason for this. If you hadn't have gave me this woman, I wouldn't be in the fix I'm in today. You want to shift the blame. Eve said the serpent beguiled me. She didn't want to take responsibility for herself. People still lie. They were lying then, they're lying now. They were cheating then, they're cheating now. They were murdering then, they're murdering now. They were stealing then, they're stealing now. So human nature is the same. And so what I'm saying is that since human nature does not change, then we have to look at the past and maybe we can make the proper adjustments and learn from their mistakes. Often, sometimes we say that, we learn from our mistake. This is true. But we can also learn from others' mistakes, because if it went wrong for them, there's a possibility, church, that it will go wrong for us. Here in 1 Corinthians chapter 10, Paul talks about Israel, how that they were one people. If you go back to verse 1 of chapter 10, as he addresses the church at Corinth, he said, "Moreover, brethren, I would not that you should be ignorant, how that our fathers were under the cloud, listen to this, and all passed through the sea." Verse 2 said, "And were all baptized unto Moses in the cloud in the sea." Verse 3, "And did all eat of the same spiritual meat." Verse 4, "And did all drink of the same spiritual drink. For they drank of that spiritual rock that followed them, and that rock was Christ." Verse 5 says, "But with many of them God were not well pleased, for they were overthrown in the wilderness." If you notice how often this word "all," no one of that generation was exempted, but they all faced the same thing. They all were blessed by God. They were fed by God. They were led by God. Yes, Moses was a visible person, but in reality, God led them. He led them by a pillar of fire by night and by a pillar of cloud by day. He fed them manna from heaven. Every day he gave them their daily bread. After a while, some of them got tired of manna. They wanted meat. All were thirsty. God provided water for all out of the rock. They all ate, they all drank. But what happened was that when they got full, when they got fed, the Bible said they rose up to play. In other words, church, when they became satisfied, when they became comfortable, they began to turn away from the Lord. So verse 5 said, "But these who were not, but did not please God, they were overthrown in the wilderness." We know that story, how that crowd that came out of Egypt, all of that generation died. Why? Because they did not please God. Only those who were born within those 40 years, except Caleb and Joshua, were the original that came out from the land of Egypt. The only one that went into the promised land, but the rest of them were overthrown in the wilderness. And he tells us that these things were our example. In other words, it happened to them that we might see them as our example, to the intent that we should not lust after evil things as they lusted. You see how that we can learn from others' mistakes? It's clearly printed out here in the Bible that the things that happened to ancient Israel were for an example of this generation that we're living in right now. It's to the end of the world. So we can learn from the past. How many of us, if there are any of us who are watching and listening today, have made errors in the past, and now we see the error our ways, and we refuse to go that route again. So maybe we have misjudged someone and caused us to lose a friendship that could have been rewarded, that could have been lasting for many years, but because of our arrogance, we've turned people away from drawing people unto us, and we learn from the past, because we cannot, if what we're doing in the past and it's not working, what we're doing in the past that has become counterproductive, what we're doing in the past is causing harm and not good. What gives us the idea that we're going to get different results by doing the same thing? Give you an example. Whether you're making, say, a gallon of lemonade, or whether you're making 10 gallons of lemonade, you use 3 ingredients. That is water, lemon, and sugar. That's what goes into lemonade. Now, if we continue to repeat that over and over and over and over, the end result's going to be what? Lemonade. But until we change the formula, we're not going to get, until we change the formula, we're going to get the same result. But when we change the formula, maybe just add in some Kool-Aid, it's different. We got different results. So from that we learn that if we keep doing the same thing over and over and over, we're going to get the same results, regardless of how good it might feel, regardless of how enjoyable it might be, but you're going to get the same results. So Paul is telling the Corinthian church here that these people had lust. For our example, we should not lust after evil things as they lust. What do they lust after? Often when we use the word lust, we're associated with a man, a woman, as Jesus said, when a man which is looks upon a woman, which gender is not in thing here, for the man looks upon a woman, or a woman upon a man. With lust, he says, they already committed adultery in their heart. Jesus using this as an example. But these people, see what he said, they lust after evil things. And that was, they lust after idol God. The God that brought them out of Egypt, the God that fed them in the wilderness, the God that gave them water in the desert, the God gave them protection by fire by night, and gave them a cloud by day, not only to follow them, but it provided shade for them in the desert. But yet when they got out of that situation, church, they began to lust after other gods. So many times, we say, well, we're living in a new day now. We don't lust after either God. Oh, yes, we do. We don't call them gods. Many of us call them toys. We see that, and nothing wrong with, having necessities. But sometimes those things that God give us, we change them into idols. Why? Because we spend more time with that than with Him. For instance, I know you heard people say many times that how years ago, right here, this community where people used to walk to church on Sunday. You get, the church before. and people would walk to church. I used to hear my mother and I hear some people here talking about they had what they call walking shoes. On Sunday morning, they would put on their walking shoes and put their Sunday shoes in the bag. They walk to church, and when they get here, they pull off them old dusty shoes and put on them dress shoes. Why? They were walking. But it seems like now some of those same folks who used to walk to church, once God blessed them with a car, they'd rather stay home and wash it. Shine it up rather than come to the house. It made it an idol. Anything that takes more attention away, what you give more of your time and attention to than God, that's how it become an idol. Sometimes even the job we have becomes an idol. We go to the job and we bring the job home with us. And it becomes an idol. Why? Because it's taking up space, taking time for God. He said that the God were not pleased that the idols, the idolaters, is something that neither be idolaters as some of them were, as is written. The people sat down, ate, and drank, and they rose up to play. Then he said, neither let us commit fornication as some of them committed. And fell one day 23,000 for fornication. That word is not mentioned a whole lot in church. We talk about adultery, that's when, individuals, husband, wife, want to step outside of the bounds of marriage with another, called adultery. But fornication is being intimate without the benefit of marriage. The Bible says here that in one day, 23,000 people died. Think back a few years. What time like that? When this HIV first reared its ugly head, many people died from that virus of HIV. And what it was that you had a whole lot of folks, I'll put it like this, we had too many lovers and not enough love that involved in fornication. From that, this virus came out called HIV, and it killed thousands. And what happened then, it happened again, because Solomon said there's nothing new under the sun. Neither let us tempt Christ, as some tempted them in the wilderness. Even murmured here. Some of them also murmured, were destroyed by, they destroyed. They murmured against Moses. They murmured against everything. They were grumbling, complaining out of all God was doing for them, yet they continued to complain. The Bible said these things now happened unto them as an example. Look at what happened to them. And the same thing that happened unto us. The Bible said they were happened unto them for example, and they were written for us, for our admonition. In other words, these things were written that we might gain insight and be mindful, my sisters and brothers, that what happened to them, it had strong possibility that it can happen if we fail to learn from the past. There's some things in each of our lives we made some mistakes. Maybe we had not confessed those mistakes to God. But then there too we can learn from the past. Because we have past sin in our lives that we have not confessed. Those sins have not been forgiven. We have to learn from the past. In the past, we know that disobedience brought about pain and suffering for the children of Israel. For an example, even in today, our disobedience will bring about pain and suffering upon us. Yes, what the Lord wanted when He created man, that man would live in obedience unto Him. And God wanted a man to deal with his creation with less rules and regulation as possible, because He didn't want man to feel like that he didn't have no choice in how he lived. So He gave man a double freedom. Oh yes, He did, and he was free to stand, and also he was free to fall. So then he made his choice, and this choice caused him to lose everything he had. Oh yes, when you look at it, what he had there in the garden. Oh yes, Adam had a home that was prepared by God. And he had a food supply that was inexhaustible. For God told him that he could eat of all the trees except the one that stood in the midst of the garden. So He gave him just two scriptures that if he would live by, yes, those two scriptures, that he would not have to suffer the consequence. So then, when he was disobedient, he lost that fine home. Through disobedience, he lost, yes, that food supply. Through disobedience, church, he was put out, yes, into a cold world, and out there he had to eat bread by the sweat of his brow. This was an example, church, that if we are obedient, yes, unto the Lord, yes, we can avoid, yes, the pitfall of life. Yes, that's not saying, church, that we won't have any trouble. No, not saying that we won't have difficulties, but if we are obedient, oh yeah, to God, why, He will always make a way for His children. So He said, now these are examples, and let us look at another example. Jesus was the ultimate example. The way He lived, and the way He walked. He was setting an example. He said, if you want to live right, and if you want to live successfully, follow me in everything. He was not saying just follow behind me as I walk to and fro, but follow my teaching, follow the precepts, follow the gospel, follow the word of God. And if you follow the word, you will be walking in the light. And anyone who walks in the light will not stumble. Oh, I thank God that I've learned from the past. When I study the Word of God, I can find so many examples many people were shut out because they refused to learn. But oh, we have the Bible, we have God's Word, we have no excuse. This is the light that He has given. He set in front of us each day to read the Word, to take heed the Word, not only hearers, but doers of the Word. And when it comes down to the end, we will have learned the lesson of life, that only what we do for the Lord will last. Everything else will pass away. There's nothing new under the sun. No. There's so many things that we don't know. But because we don't know, there's no reason why we should believe every word of God. His word is true. His word is infallible. His word will never fail. I heard it say, before my word shall fail, heaven and earth will pass away. We have to learn from the past. You see things happen to other people has happened in the past. And maybe we're doing some of the same things now. And that end result are not favorable. It could happen. What people are doing now, it's been done before. And you know what? It's going to be done to the next generation. The next generation should be able to look back on this generation. Maybe they can see some things that we should have done that we didn't, and they can profit from that. But if you refuse to learn or to know history, someone said that you're bound to repeat. It is said that Henry Ford said the only, people don't care too much about history because we want to read about something happened thousands of years ago. And his word was only history that is important what we're making right now. But that's not true. We can learn from the mistakes of others. God bless you. May God keep you. Keep us.
In his arms, I feel the best thing I ever done.
And we thank you for your attention this morning. We pray that something has been said that will cause us to look back to the past. And maybe there's some errors that have been made, and you've seen what the end results, what have brought to others, and make the necessary adjustments that we can learn from the past. Don't ever think that what happened to them cannot happen to us. As Paul writes to the church of Corinth, that what happened to them was an example for us. And we can learn from them. We can learn from each other. So we pray that you would take this message prayerfully and share it with other family members, other friends, and hopefully that the word will find a way in the hearts of people. Let us pray. Lord, thank you for this moment. Thank you for your word. Thank you for allowing us to proclaim it. In spite of the difficulties of believing, pray that we have justice and sharing and reminding us not to forget the past, but it can teach us a great lesson for the future. And Lord, we pray that everyone have had a wonderful celebration and are ready now to go back to life as close to normal as possible, if it is possible. But we pray that through it all,